Hello everyone, and welcome to Pisces Guide to Pop Culture. I'm of course your host TJ. Today I want to do a brief review of The Bride, the new reimagining of The Bride of Frankenstein by Maggie Gyllenhaal. So, I know that if you know anything about this film at this point, it's that it's a flop, unfortunately. I think that's really a shame. It is a shambolic and very sort of stitched together film. I don't think it's the most coherent film, but I found it a true delight because I love horror and I love reimaginings and I love feminist filmmaking, which I think this film very much is. And it is, above all, a sort of passionate, frenzied feminist scream of rage, which we definitely need in this moment. But it's also, I mean, it is a captivating film, and I think two things contribute to that. One is Maggie Gyllenhaal's direction. Her screenplay is, I think, a bit touch and go, but it is like a very as I said, frenzied film, and part of that is, a great deal of that is from Gyllenhaal's direction, and she is clearly someone with a very clear artistic vision for what she wants to do and her reimagining of The Bride of Frankenstein. The other thing, of course, is Jessie Buckley, and I'm going to spend the most of my review talking about Buckley's performance, because I've been a fan of Buckley's ever since I saw her in season 4, I want to say, of Fargo, which was a mess of a season, but she was a real standout, and I loved her in Hamnet. And so I think that in her performance of the bride, this woman who is killed by her boyfriend and then is reanimated to serve as the bride of Frankenstein, even though she's lied to about her memory. But Buckley's also playing like the spirit of Mary Shelley, who's inhabiting this figure. Like I said, the screenplay is nuts, but I think there's something really captivating about Buckley's performance, and then because she's someone who commits so fully, emotionally, physically, and maybe even spiritually to the role, we're sort of dragged along by the bride herself through this madness and through her sort of recovery of her own agency as a woman. And I think the film, like all, in my mind, great films, even those that are not necessarily like good films, but truly great films, grapple with big ideas. They sort of force us to think about it. And this film is, asking all kinds of questions about women's agency, about how women reclaim their stories, how they reclaim their own memories, whether they can. And of course, the fact that Mary Shelley is sort of inhabiting Ida to some degree is also like, can women, what happens when women work against other women in their own agency? So as I said, there's so much going on here, and it's such a rich, textured film, less, I think, coherent than, say, Wuthering Heights, with which it no doubt will be compared in years to come. But I think that, they make an interesting pairing because they're feminist reimaginings of Gothic tales. So if you haven't yet, do go see The Bride. I think it is really important to sort of celebrate these radical and sometimes challenging films that nevertheless are very much worth watching. So anyway, thanks as always for joining me here at the Pisces Guide. It does get my seal of approval, so I hope you enjoyed this little spiel. Take care, y'all.